So this is what it looks like to watch a video on the world's first color e-ink smartphone. Feel free to come a little closer. It's quite a bit different than your iPhone or Android. For reference, the shirt I'm wearing is orange, this smartphone case is green, and these jerry-rig knives are blue and pink, respectively. For reference, an iPhone has about 460 colored pixels per inch, while this color e-ink screen only has 150. Alright, you can back up a little bit now. This is the BigMe Highbreak Pro, and there might be a little bit of foreshadowing since the word break is literally in the name, but there's only one way to find out for sure.
E-ink displays are fascinating, and I've been looking forward to the technology traversing over from tablets into the smartphone world for quite a long time now. And it's finally here. As you can tell, it definitely does not have the same vibrance or sharpness of an LCD or an OLED, but that's kind of the whole point. Right out of the box, the BigMe Highbreak Pro is shipped in a clear plastic case. You might have noticed that the screen is already turned on, and it says BigMe just for you, like some kind of Stone Age pickup line. It's allowed to be turned on all the time because the screen's pixels require no power to maintain their position, like an Etch-a-Sketch. And when it comes time for the pixels to switch colors, they can individually wipe themselves, also just like an Etch-a-Sketch. This brings a different color to the surface rather quickly. E-readers have been around for about 30 years now, but the ability to have colored pixels or pixel pouches is relatively new. The BigMe Highbreak Pro is running full Android and can load all the normal apps. As we open up YouTube, you can see that while other smartphones might have 60 Hz or 120 Hz refresh rates, this colored e-ink refreshes at 21 Hz. But I think that with the ghosting, even that might be a little too generous. Pulling in our microscope, we can take a closer look at the pigment pouches. Remember, the color white appears in the presence of all the other colors in the visible light spectrum, which is why you can see a red, green, and blue portion of each pixel on the white background. If we swipe on the screen, you can see how fast the pixels change, with pretty minimal ghosting, all things considered. The craziest part, though, is that if the battery dies or the phone turns off, the last image you looked at will be on the screen forever, since once the pixels flip, they don't require power to stay locked in. You'll see what I mean in a second. What's even more fun though is that if we zoom into the e-ink pixels as a video is playing, we can see that it works, but not in an overly flashy kind of way, which might be exactly what our feeble human brains need to overcome our smartphone addictions. Truth hurts. Speaking of feeble, let's get into the durability test. I'll remove the pre-installed plastic screen protector to see what the screen is actually made from. As you know, plastic screens would scratch at a level 2 with deeper grooves at a level 3. And that's exactly what we see here on the BigMe Highbreak Pro. There is a plastic laminate layer underneath the temporary plastic screen protector that is getting damaged. Plastic is totally okay, by the way. That's just what these tests are for. Now that we know, we can just keep keys and smartphones in separate pockets and it all should be just fine. It looks like everything is plastic, including the large bezels that surround the screen, as well as the earpiece up at the top of the phone. But luckily, the 5-megapixel front-facing camera does have a little circle of glass in front of the lens, so it won't get scratched up like everything else. And honestly, even at 5 megapixels, the front-facing camera is surprisingly good. But when we swap to the back, it's like the 20-megapixel rear camera got slathered in Vaseline. To be fair though, I haven't done any software updates, so this is just what we're getting straight out of the box. Making our way to the Highbreak's body, we can see that the whole frame is made from polished plastic. The buttons are metal, including a red fingerprint scanning power button, and up at the top we have more plastic and a red IR blaster. On the left we have our volume rocker and a whole lot more plastic. At the bottom, we get our lower loudspeaker, an 18-watt fast-charging USB-C port, as well as a metal SIM card tray, which does not have a rubber ring, nor any water ingress protection to speak of. Interestingly enough, though, there is real glass on the back. The glass does add some weight to the phone, so it does feel normal, but with plastic everywhere else, it does seem weird to randomly add some glass, especially since, as we know, glass is glass and glass breaks. One thing to keep in mind though, if you plan on switching over, not all apps will behave equally on an e-ink screen, especially with the lower pixel density when it comes to colors. For example, take a look at NordVPN, which is also today's sponsor. As I'm sure you already know, NordVPN allows you to be anywhere you want to in the world without ever leaving your house. And while the app does indeed work on the BigMe Highbreak Pro, how it visually looks is entirely different. For example, right now the government thinks I'm in Vienna, Austria, which you can see mapped out on my Samsung, but the thin lines of the map don't quite render as well on the e-ink screen. NordVPN scrambles my internet traffic, so from the outside no one can see what I'm doing or where I'm located. And with more than 9,300 servers in more than 211 locations, I can literally be browsing from anywhere in the world, all while securing up to 10 devices with a single account. I can even go to Mexico. I hear they're getting universal healthcare, which sounds nice. I can ask NordVPN if my text messages or screenshots look like scams, which is definitely helpful. And you can get 4 months extra with my link, nordvpn.com/jerryrig. Just like you would protect the outside of your phone with a case, you can protect the data inside of your phone with NordVPN. You don't gotta take my word for it though, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee with the link in my description. nordvpn.com/jerryrig. Peace of mind is totally worth a few bucks a month. I've mentioned that the color resolution of this e-ink display is 150 pixels per inch, and that's true. However, when it comes to the black and white images or text, it doubles to 300 pixels per inch, almost on par with the resolution of a regular smartphone. These colored pouches just take up more space than the black and white pouches do, and we can see that the plastic screen lasts for about 30 seconds before going white and melting that top plastic layer a bit. Now, the bin test. Will the Hi-Break Pro break? Wait, sorry, I just discovered more images in here. Stock images, of course, preloaded onto the phone, probably to show off the colored e-ink. I should have checked for these earlier. However, it's looking a little too much like Elon's Twitter feed in here for my taste, so let's go back to the binding. With the bin from the front, we hear a cataclysmic crack. However, nothing visually appears to be damaged, no cracks or kinks, except for that the phone is now not operational anymore, so something has definitely failed on the inside. And the Hi-Break Pro is officially highly broken. It has failed my durability test. But on the bright side, now we get a tour of its insides, as well as we get to see how the pouches of pigmented pixels come together underneath that plastic screen. Removing the back glass is rather difficult. Instead of the normal watertight adhesive we see on Samsungs or iPhones, Bigme is using a foaming permanent adhesive, which makes repairability quite a bit more messy. But with enough of the shards removed, we can unscrew about 15 Phillips head screws, and this allows the back plastics to pull away from the screen and motherboard portion of the phone. I'll unplug the large battery, the extension ribbon and display ribbon, and surprisingly, just like I told you earlier, the screen is still on. Dead, to be sure, but the last thing we looked at is still permanently displayed. Watch, I'll completely remove the battery, all 4,500 milliamp hours of it, so we can be sure there is zero power to the display. I'll even remove the motherboard with its thermal foam and Dimensity 1080 octa-core processor. The rear 20 megapixel camera does not have optical image stabilization, and the lower rear mono speaker does not have any balls inside either. The 18-watt charging port does have a red rubber ring around the opening, but even with all of the hardware removed, the display remains displaying its colored e-ink pixels in the exact position they were left before the power went out. Let's dig them out. Apparently, the plastic layer we melted earlier is a permanent laminate layer over a slab of glass, similar to how some of the ultra-rugged phones are manufactured. And surprisingly, even if we remove this glass, the pixels are still intact. Thumbs up for that. At this point, we've removed 2 plastic layers and cracked off a glass layer, and the pixels are still doing work. Kinda cool. It's only after we remove 1 more plastic layer that we're able to get a look at the colored pouches. These are inside a flexible rubber membrane, which sits on top of the normal black and white e-ink pouches. These can now be disturbed since they are unprotected. Pretty crazy, and it's amazing to see how it all works from the inside. Would you ever rock an e-ink smartphone? Let me know down in the comments, and hit that subscribe button. We are so close to 10 million. Thanks a ton for watching. I'll see you around.